Hi, Blue Roomers. I miss you very, very much. And one of the things I miss the most is reading you stories, especially ones that I like very, very much. And I brought our friend Ngala to listen to the story because I don't have any children sitting here to read the story too. So he's going to listen and I will tell the story and you guys can listen on your end. The story I want to read is kind of reminds me of what we've been learning about in school, about healthy bodies and eating healthy. And it is called The Seven Silly Eaters by Marianne Hoberman and illustrated by Marla Frazee. Remember, the illustrator is the one who does the pictures and the author is the one who writes the story. So let's start off. This is their house. And what I like about this book is there are rhymes. So while you're listening to the story, see if you can pick out the rhymes. Not so long ago, they say, a mother lived just like today. Mrs. Peters was her name. Her little boy was named the same. Now Peter was a perfect son in every way except for one. When Peter was just 1 year old, he did not like his milk served cold. He did not like his milk served hot. He liked it warm, and he would not drink it if he was not sure it was the proper temperature. But Mrs. Peters did not mind. She was a mother sweet and kind, and when his milk spilled on the floor, she patiently prepared some more. She'd take the bottle from the shelf and chuckle softly to herself. What a silly sort of eater is my darling baby Peter. When Peter had not yet turned 2, I can show you the picture while I'm reading. Another baby, sweet and new, was born, dear Lucy, small and fair, with big blue eyes and curly hair. But long before this child was grown, she had opinions of her own, of what she'd eat and what she'd not. She hated milk, both cold and hot, and warm was worst of all. Instead, whenever Lucy dear was fed, she bellowed for pink lemonade. Not from a can, oh no, homemade. Have you ever had homemade lemonade? It's really yummy, but it's a lot of work. Mrs. Peters did not mind. She squeezed each lemon to its rind while mopping milk up from the floor and patiently preparing more. She'd take the lemons from the shelf and giggle softly to herself. What a silly pair of eaters are Lucy dear and Peter Peters. Look at her squeezing lemons. Oh, I can do it like this again. Now Lucy grew and Peter grew till he was 3 and she was 2. And who was 1? Why, little Jack, with eyes so brown and hair so black. A happy baby, never cross, but all he'd eat was applesauce. Peeling apples by the pound, Mrs. Peters faintly frowned. She'd take the apples from the shelf and murmur weakly to herself, oh, what a silly bunch of eaters are Lucy, Jack, and Peter Peters. Peter, Lucy, and young Jack had another brother, Mac. Mac was charming, round, and plump, but if his oatmeal had a lump, Mac would dump it on the cat. Mrs. Peters hated that. I don't think I would like that either. I have 2 cats, and you never know. One of them might pop up onto the couch, so don't be alarmed if they do. But since she loved her children 4, she'd strain the oatmeal 2 times more. She'd take it from the pantry shelf and mumble sadly to herself, "Oh, what a foolish group of eaters are all my precious little Peters." Do you think she's getting tired yet? And before another year was through, who came along? Why, Mary Lou. She was a darling, sweet and bright, and had a healthy appetite. That is, as long as she was fed soft and squishy homemade bread. Poor Mrs. Peters got no rest, but still she did her very best. She'd take the flour from the shelf and mumble feebly to herself, what a fussy bunch of eaters are all my lovely little Peters." Now she has 5 children. If the story is called The 7 Silly Eaters, how many more do you think she's going to have? Let's find out. A year rolled by. The children grew. They really are a splendid crew, sighed Mrs. Peters, pinning pins and diapering her brand new twins. Twins means 2 babies at once. Little sisters, quick and smart, impossible to tell apart. But Flo liked poached eggs, and Fran liked fried. If she mixed them up, they cried. Tired to the very bone, Mrs. Peters, groaned a groan. She'd take the eggs down from the shelf and whisper weakly to herself, "What persnickety young eaters are all my 7 little Peters." Now you remember she had 5, and then she had twins, and that would be 2 more, which makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like half of our class. Now the time went by, as time will do, and as it passed, the children grew. The problem was that as they grew, their appetites kept growing too, but not their choice of what to eat. Each child continued to repeat. They wanted what they'd had before. The trouble was they wanted more. As you get bigger, you need to eat more because your body is bigger. So if you only like oatmeal just right, you have to eat bigger bowls of it. Oh, creamy oatmeal, pots of it, homemade bread and lots of it. Peeling apples by the peck, Mrs. Peters was a wreck. And look at the house and look at Mrs. Peters. I think she looks a little bit tired. She wiped her brow and heaved a sigh. Oh, another year was passing by. In fact, she realized with sorrow her birthday would arrive tomorrow. Drearily, she shook her head and wearily went up to bed. She thought the children had forgot her special day, but they had not. At crack of dawn, they all began to carry out their secret plan. Mrs. Peters would be fed. a birthday breakfast in her bed. A breakfast made of all the foods that kept them in such happy moods. Ooh, that's going to be a feast. So while their weary mother slept, down the stairs the children crept. They snuck downstairs. And from the cupboards and the shelves, happily they helped themselves. Cheerily they chopped and stirred, preparing what they each preferred. But despite the pains they took, since nobody knew how to cook, to measure things or make them hot, the more they tried, the worse it got. Oh dear. First, Mac's oatmeal turned out lumpy, which made poor Mac turn grim and grumpy. In fact, the lumps got him so cross, he dumped them in Jack's applesauce. This bothered Jack so much, he threw it in the dough of Mary Lou, who tossed the mishmash that they made straight into Lucy's lemonade. And that put her in such a huff, she poured the icky sticky stuff into the double frying pan that held the eggs of Flo and Fran, who flung the hodgepodge on the spot into the milk in Peter's pot. Ooh. Looks like it's one big conglomeration of everything that they like. But when they saw what they had done, they wished they never had begun. They'd hardly slept a wink that night, and still things hadn't turned out right. And even though they tried their best, it hadn't worked. They were depressed. Depressed means sad. They'd be in trouble too unless they found some place to hide the mess. The oven seemed the perfect spot. They all forgot it still was hot. They stuck the pot inside, and then they all went back to bed again. So if you put a pot of mush in the oven and the oven was turned on, what's going to happen? It's going to cook. The clock struck 6, but on they slept. Meanwhile, their mother softly stepped down to the kitchen, and she smelled a smell. What could it be? She could not tell. It smelled so good. She sniffed some more and opened up the oven door. She woke the children with her cries. They all came running in surprise. And in the kitchen, what they found was Mrs. Peters dancing round. And in the oven, no mistake, a pink and plump and perfect cake. I wonder what it will look like. Ooh. And as their mother danced with glee, she cried, "A birthday cake for me? A birthday cake still piping hot? To think I thought that you forgot. Now tell me, please, how did you make this pink and plump and perfect cake? So high and light and smooth as silk?" "It's smooth as silk from all my milk," said Peter. Lucy said, "It's pink from all my lemonade, I think." "And from my apples," added Jack. "My oatmeal made it soft," said Mac. "My bread dough too," said Mary Lou. Said Fran and Flo, "As for its size, it was our eggs that made it rise." Then everybody sniffed some more, and danced around the kitchen floor. They put the cake upon a dish and lit the candles. Make a wish, the children cried, before you blow. And Mrs. Peters did just so. And what is more, her wish came true, as birthday wishes always do. I'd like to have a piece of that pink cake. And from that day to this, 'tis said, the Peters family all is fed a single simple meal, just one, a meal that's good for everyone, a meal on which they all agree, made from their secret recipe. They all take turns in mixing it, they all take turns in fixing it. It's thick to beat and quick to bake. It's fine to eat and fun to make. It's Mrs. Peters' birthday cake. Now, if we were coming to school in the blue room and we had ovens in the room like our old school, we would make Mrs. Peters' birthday cake, because I figured out the secret recipe, and I call it Silly Cake because the book is called The 7 Silly Eaters. So my silly cake has all the things that the children like to eat in it. If you can remember what they are: milk, oatmeal, eggs, flour like in bread, lemonade, and applesauce. Now I only got 6 because remember, Flo and Fran were the twins and they liked eggs 2 different ways. So that made 7 silly eaters. But there has to be these 6 special ingredients in our cake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the recipe to your moms and dads on their email. And if you would like to try this cake at home, it's really good. And I also like to put a glaze on top with lemonade. Now, my cake didn't come out as pink as the one in the book because I think you'd have to use a lot of lemonade to make it really, really pink. And I didn't use a lot of lemonade, but I'll show you what my cake looks like. So this is the cake, and it's round and plump and perfect. And when it's cut inside, it's a little bit pink. You can see the pink because I did use lemonade in my cake. And maybe when we get back to school, I can make one and bring it in and we can all try it for snack. How does that sound? So what do you think, Angala? Angala will be able to try my cake because he's living here at home with me. I didn't want to leave him at school. It would be awful lonely without the children. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, but I will see you very soon with some more exciting things. Bye.